You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm the werewolf that's currently inhabiting Zach's skin. Adam, how are we doing today?
Still doing that bit, huh, Zach? Okay.
Yeah, no, I've told people on Patreon the bits continue until I forget about them. That's the only rule.
Well, speaking of forgetting about things, our theme this week is Flashback comics. So
people normally are remembering things in flashbacks, though, not forgetting.
But are they remembering it because they forgot it, or
No.
I honestly don't know.
In all three of these cases, explicitly no.
Well, in one case, anyway, we need some help here. I think. I don't think we can handle.
If we
this
can't get
topic alone.
flashbacks and memories and forgetting,
we're already
straight.
screwing this up.
But do you know who never screws up anything in the world of comics?
Me.
It's that guy. It's that guy.
Him. It's David Harper. You might know him from Sketched or Off Panel or other places. He is one of the smartest guys talking about comics out there. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show. David, what's going on?
Oh, not much. I do want to say it is kind of funny that I do a lot of oral histories and a lot of stuff looking back in the past. And it's very fitting that I'm coming on your podcast to talk about the Flashback comics.
Yeah.
Unintentional. It's mostly created by the fact that I don't know if you know this, but you've talked about a lot of X-Men podcast or comics, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for choices.
We have run into that situation, which has gotten us to be very creative about how we find X-Men comics to talk about.
Yes.
It mostly requires us having a running list of comics that you could only purchase at Taco Bell and related ephemera that we can connect to comics and find a loose way to make that happen. It's not always the easiest, and sometimes we are stretching the limits of our own show. But you know what? The show is what it is.
When you sent me an email and you're like, I know you want to talk about Chris Bachalo. Here's a list of like 12 total comics. And I was like, what in the world is this?
This is all we have left.
It was ridiculous. And then I was sitting there, I was on a beach in Hawaii, and I was, all right, Zach gave me this list. I'm just going to start searching for things that I've read and like that might be on this list. I went for the deepest cuts I could possibly think of. Gone. All of them gone.
I want to know what your deep cut. I just want to know what David Harper's deep cut. X-Men comic is.
One of them ended up being on the list. We are going to talk about Wolverine First Class, which I will say I think is an underrated series. I'm trying to remember. I think I blacked it out because I was so mad at Zach for torturing me with this list of things that I could not choose from. I remember one of them. I expected Wisdom and or Captain Britain in the MI13 to not be on there. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to go for something that's not X-Men, but that is vaguely X-Men related. Runaways, the Rainbow Roll. And
yes!
And you know what? Not available. Taken.
You and I and about no one else love that comic.
It's great.
But
the Krakoa story is great.
It's so good.
Well, I'm glad we found some stuff that, lines up with your interests that we could talk about. Because, these are some weird picks. So normally it's not a guest on the show that picks the theme. So, Zach, we should probably plug our normal thing, which is our Patreon.
Normally, yes. You can go on over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. Reach deep down into your hearts and pocketbooks. Toss a couple of coins right into our coffers at the $5 a month level. That's the cost of a comic book these days. And these unprecedented times, that's what a comic book costs. And instead of buying a comic book, you could buy an episode of this podcast where you'll come up with a theme for us to talk about, and we will jerry-rig impossible X-Men stories into it. And that's what we do here. We have great patrons. We have a really fun slot of Patreon requests coming up soon. So we're excited to get about that. But before we plug anything else, David, it seems like you might have something to plug as well.
I do want to say for listeners, if you do like my takes on these flashback stories, I do have a my print annual for Sketch and Off Panel that is for sale until April 27th, Sunday, April 27th. It is a book that collects my favorite work from Sketch and Off Panel from the past year. It has a forward by Kelly Sue DeConnick. It has a cover by Tim Leong from Supergraphic. It has a big interview with Chip Zdarsky in there, a profile piece of Peach Momoko, which I talked to Peach and a whole bunch of other people for. And unfortunately, I talked about Daredevil, not the X-Men. But it is pretty cool. And I think you might like it. So check it out on Big Cartel, sketch.bigcartel.com, or go to Sketch because you can find it there
We'll
too.
drop a link in the episode description. It's right there, folks.
Pros. I love it.
I will second this recommendation. I have a couple of these volumes. They're very nice.
Zach has all of them.
I have all of them. And I always forget until the last minute to be like, oh, wait, shoot. I do have to buy it again this year.
I do want to note
collection.
Zach did note one year. He's like, well, I've gotten every other one. I might as well get this. I'm like, I don't know if that makes me feel good, but I like it.
I have been, hold on. I have been a day one paying subscriber.
I know.
.com.
I know. If I come on your podcast, I got to come on to roast you guys a little bit.
That's all good. We're excited about it. And you know what? I'm excited to talk about this first comic here. It's not one that gets talked about a huge amount, which I think is why you threw it on here. We're talking about Wolverine First Class. This is number 5, written by Fred Van Lente with pencils by Clayton Henry. Now, David, you are an Alaskan.
That is a fact.
And I would imagine that a lot of Americans in the lower 48.
Yes.
In the lower 48. Look at Alaska and be like, that's Canada Light, right?
Yeah, basically. I like to think I'm half Canadian, half American.
Which makes this a perfect comic because this is Wolverine telling an Alpha Flight story. And I have to ask because they're a interesting bunch. Are you an Alpha Flight guy?
Not really. I like Puck. I like Puck. That's kind of most of the list. The rest of them don't really have much of a personality in my experience.
Excellent answer.
The people who love Alpha Flight, as I'm sure you know, love
Canadians.
Alpha Flight.
That's what we call them, Canadians.
No, I'm engaged to a Canadian and she hates Alpha Flight. So
really,
I don't. Well, they were forced to This is one of the comics that were just like given to Canadians, and they were told like, "Hey, this is superheroes," and like then they were like, "What? Alpha Flight? This isn't very good."
I think to thread that needle. The majority of the people who like Alpha Flight are Canadians, but not all Canadians like Alpha Flight.
Or John Byrne fans.
Yeah,
John Byrne fans.
Which, so sorry. And guys, what is this comic book? This is
Adam,
Wolverine. Let's talk about the premise of this comic book, which basically like suggests
a multi-level flashback.
Yeah, this is insane, right?
Well, so Wolverine First Class was actually a spin-off of the pretty popular X-Men First Class comic,
right?
That was coming out ahead of the movie, even.
Yeah,
like which was
ahead of it.
Yeah, it was a flashback to the Silver Age, and like kind of saying, hey, here are some stories about the original X-Men, and it was pretty nice, pretty fun. Very light stuff, and not necessarily what you anticipate when you're coming into a Wolverine comic, who especially in 2008 this is the dark, gritty, anti-hero, violent, old man Logan era book.
I don't know about you guys, but when I look for a flashback, I want an explanation of a very specific panel of a comic book. And this is a full issue that explains why in Giant Size X-Men, Wolverine cut that guy's tie. That's the whole point of this comic book, and it's a doozy. It sure is something.
I think Wolverine should cut more people's ties.
I will say, okay, so when Zach asked me, like, what do I want to talk about, I included Wolverine First Class because first off, I remember liking it when I first was reading it. I think I have all the first issues right over here. Second off, the thing I like about it as a flashback series is that it isn't flashing back to like within a 5-minute window in between when like Jean Grey died, when Jean Grey was alive or something like that. What happened in that 5-minute window? It's just like, here's adventures featuring these characters you like in a different time. And like Wolverine First Class is oriented on Wolverine and Kitty Pryde hanging out. And the funny thing though is I honestly don't remember anything from this series, and I picked this issue solely because that's Clayton Henry art. I don't even know if I made a good decision. What did you guys think?
The art is really nice. I thought it was good. All right, so just the basic plot breakdown of this is that Wolverine and Kitty have like stolen the Blackbird and shot off to Canada. The rest of the X-Men aren't really sure why. And then while they're flying, Wolverine tells another flashback within the flashback
Yes.
about a time where he was assigned as the leader of Alpha Flight to investigate some kind of military base or something. I don't know what is happening in this where these like other...
There was like a terrorist situation where somebody was like they abducted people, but it was people who had powers.
Canadian. What was the Canadian that they abducted?
It was like it was like the
representative of the Queen.
Of the Queen, yeah. It was
Look, if you're going to ask me about Canadian politics,
it's like Governor General or something.
Governor General.
The Governor General. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Can't get that wrong. Anyway, so they run into some other people that were like, what is it? No, it is the Governor General.
It is the Governor General.
It's the Governor General. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. But then they run into these other people like Citadel, right?
Yeah.
Who are weapon plus experimentees, I guess. And
they are not the same Citadel that Rob Liefeld likes so much.
No. Thank God.
This is a different Citadel.
And instead of Wolverine just attacking these guys, he's like, oh, tell me more. Like,
yeah. I want to know about my past.
Yeah. And when he tries to do this, the like corporate uppity mucks come in and like nerve gas these guys. And so the reason Wolverine is flying off to Canada is because this one guy who's basically like encased in adamantium so much he can't even like eat. I don't know how he's even alive.
That's what I was wondering. That honestly is my big question: is how is that guy alive?
I mean, Wolverine has knives in his hands. I'm going to assume that like people can live after experimental surgery that turns them into Weapon Y and Adamantium Man.
Yeah,
like I'm going to guess they just found a way. It's not
a good
like
a mouthful. He could do like the squeezable thing, like squeezable gels or whatever. Lots of nutrients.
There's a lot of ways to continue living.
I mean, love. Do you have anything else to say on like the overall story? I did want to say one of my favorite parts about the story is the fact that Professor X, a literal telepath that I believe was in like the room of Cerebro when this happens, basically tells the rest of the X-Men that Wolverine has betrayed them and has abducted Kitty Pryde and is now flying to Canada to make her Canadian or something like that. And like, instead of using Cerebro or just being like, yo, Logan, what's going on, man? I have telepathy. I'm going to speak to you about this. He's like, we're going to send the X-Men to get her back and like, I don't know, fight Wolverine or something like that.
It's a bad plan. Honestly, in line with a lot of Charles Xavier's plans.
Not the best.
Really poor plan, are all things considered. But it's interesting. You know, I think the one thing that you were talking about, you know, you threw out a couple of X-Men or Wolverine First Class stories that we could talk about here.
Right.
And you zeroed in on this because of the Clayton Henry art. I'm curious, what about Henry's art was like the driving force for you? Just a name you recognize, like, oh yeah, I like that guy. I want to read a comic with him, or
Fred Van Lent and Clayton Henry have done some really good work together. They worked on Incredible Hercules, very famous for the thumbs up to Amadeus Cho that became a meme.
Right.
I think Clayton Henry is a very underrated artist. This was an early days like fill-in job for him. This book started with Andrea DeVito, who is the artist of Annihilation, like the big Marvel event. And honestly, I was like, I don't remember what Clayton Henry was like during then. It was between this and a few other done-in-one stories. To be honest, one of the big reasons why I wanted to pick this is it was a done-in-one story. And those are kind of rare and also not normally what the Flashback vibe is all about, even though all three of these are actually done-in-one stories.
I think Van Lente specifically has been really good at these kind of one-and-done flashbacky stories, which he scatters throughout Wolverine First Class. Like, there's not arcs in this book, period. There's like two-issue stories.
Yeah, two issues, yeah.
And I think it works. He works really well. Van Lente, and maybe it's just the time that I got into comics was as he was on a different path, at least outside of the big two. But Van Lente always strikes me as a guy who like never got as many flowers as he deserves. Like always a solid player, always doing really fun, innovative stuff that maybe not the heaviest weight work that would have been out there, but like good solid comics. And honestly, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
I did have some questions. Oh, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say with Fred Van Lent, I think this period he was really underrated. He did this. He did Incredible Herc. He did a really great Taskmaster miniseries with Hefty Apollo, which was fantastic.
Mhm.
He was doing like a lot of stuff that was just like B plus work that was never going to like light your brain on fire, but it was just really solid. And it's like, in a weird way, I kind of feel like Marvel could use a few more of him right now.
Yes.
Like where he's just like, you always know you're going to get something pretty good from him. And I thought this was actually, I don't know where you guys stand. I actually, despite the flashback inception that's going on here and Professor X's wild behavior, which is not that atypical for him, actually that was a pretty solid comic. It's a fun one and done story.
It's totally fine. What I was going to say is that I think that the only thing that seems a little out of character to me is Wolverine being like kind of the latter version of Wolverine as leader, but being plugged back into this time period where he was absolutely not leader quality. But here he like jumps right into it and he's like, all right, fellas. I mean, ladies, and
you got a weird task ahead of you to deal with Wolverine in Giant Size X-Men #1, who's ripping off people's ties and doesn't want to be anybody's friend. And the canon that they wove into him is like, well, he was leading Alpha Flight and all of this stuff, and trying to find a way to marry those two. I think this comic does an admirable job trying to make that happen. And generally, where I kind of come down on is, man, this is just a good, solid comic. Like,
it's well made.
I'll take a good meat and potatoes comic because you know what?
Potatoes,
meat and potatoes taste good.
Underrated, just like Fred Van Lent and Clayton Henry.
It was
Meat
fine.
potatoes.
I would like to point out that this is also an Alpha Flight comic in a lot of respects, and that does bring it down considerably in my estimation.
That's a challenge for a lot of people, myself included. But luckily, we're up to that challenge, Adam and David. I guess you're going to be up to the challenge this week because we've got to find a place to rank this story against 1,023 other X-Men stories.
Jeez,
I do want to say it's the best comic I've ever read where Snowbird turns into a goat. Definitely #1 on that list.
I liked the goat. That was great.
The goat, yeah.
Snowbird does turn into a goat. I wonder if Canada's probably upset losing their goat to the Grade 8 recently. That's got to be tough for them.
I have to like one of the funny things about this book. One of the many funny things about this book is like they make this really big deal about how this guy's completely encased in adamantium.
Yeah.
And like it's this really big problem. But then Snowbird, and sorry, Zach, I know Adam and I are the ones who focus on realistic details to very not realistic things. Snowbird
Sure.
turns from a goat into regular Snowbird and decks him and knocks him out as he's in an adamantium case. Gotta be bad for the hand. How strong is Snowbird? I have questions.
Great point. Excellent point. Didn't go to polar bear, went right to just person.
Just regular Snowbird. I would have turned into a polar bear. White, boom. There you go.
I don't know enough about Snowbird to make any reasonable.
I'm half Canadian, so I know all about him.
You've got it. Well, I guess I'm curious if you know all about some of the comics on this list. Like I said, we've done 1,023 stories so far, ranked them all from best to worst, with the best being #1 on our list, House of X Powers of 10. The 250th best comic is X-Men Legacy Necrosha. The 500th best comic is X-Men Evolution 1-6. That's a tie-in to a children's television show. Number 750 on this list is Uncanny X-Force Let It Bleed. That's from Uncanny X-Force Volume 2. The 1000th is X-Force Killshot Anniversary Special. And the worst X-Men comic of all time is 2099 World of Tomorrow. It's pretty bad. David, have you read 2099 World of Tomorrow? I'm just curious.
No, but I feel like I'm living it sometimes.
Yeah, it's
a very bad, very poorly made comic book that I don't recommend to anyone. I don't know
what I'm going to say.
Yeah, give me a starting wager here, Zach.
Number 400 on our list right now is Wolverine 17-23. That's the time Wolverine fought a sentient pile of cocaine.
Yeah, it's not as good.
That's got to be better.
It is better. It's the cocaine's also a deviant from the movie Eternals.
Yeah,
nice.
It's great.
Yeah,
I gotta read this comic. You guys are selling this really well right now.
Oh no, this one's legitimately good. It's John Byrne and John Byrne draws it. It's not Michael Golden who writes it. Who writes it? It doesn't matter. Archie Goodwin. Archie Goodwin writes it. It's fantastic. It's a Madripoor story. It's a heck of a lot of fun. But I would say this is a pretty solid, fun comic. I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's better than number 500. I think it's better than those Evolution comics, though.
I think it's at least better than X Babies. I'm right now. I was looking at 534 as my recommendation for you guys, but this is your show, so I don't want to mess with you.
I would say this is better than X Babies. I would
say it's better than X Babies, but probably not as good as X Factor Forever at 527.
X Factor Forever is the good one.
I think Adam's right. I think that's the sweet spot, somewhere between 527 and 535.
It's okay.
Wow, they had a comic book with the X-Men: The Last Stand Collector's Edition.
Yes,
it's a weird, strange one.
Hey, have you
reading
ever
X-Men
wanted
comics my entire life, and I'm learning things from this list.
Have you ever wanted
David,
to read a comic where Stan Lee explains Grant Morrison's new X-Men to you?
Andor gets roasted by Charles Xavier and Magneto. It's a lot.
Yeah, they just make fun of Stan Lee the entire time. It's a weird comic.
Okay, I'm in.
Great. I'm gonna say that is better than this.
Yeah, I've just talked myself into it.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
This is on par though with Burnt Offering, Cable and Deadpool 7 through 10 at 532.
I would call this better than Breaking Point. That's the Kieran Gillen story where Ord of Breakworld comes back. Not Ord, some other Breakworld person that's not Ord.
Oh, you want to put it ahead of that?
Oh,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'd put it below that Ghost Rider story.
Yeah. Ghost Rider Volume 3, Number 9 is better than this. So this is going to be our new 531.
Wait. Hold on, David. Do you have any strong feelings about a random Ghost Rider comic from the early 90s?
More than you can imagine, so we don't have time for that. But no, I like the spot you're landing at. That's kind of where I was feeling too.
That's 531. And speaking of the 90s, we're going to go back to the 90s. This is something that I know, David, you've written a lot about. This concept, this theme that's been going on at Marvel over the last 5 or so years, where they have been doing flashback stories. And this was one of the first ones of that big push. This is coming from the series X-Men Legends. This is number 10 by my personal best friend, Fabian Nicieza, and with pencils by Dan Jerkins. It's X-Men Legends 10. This is a Sinister story. Now, what Marvel, David, do you want to talk a bit about what Marvel's been doing from a publishing standpoint?
Sure. So this has been happening for God only knows how long, like 3 or 4 years, I want to say.
Oh, it's been longer than that. I want to say it was King in Black. It was around King in Black, whenever that was, because it started with the Peter David and Greg Land comic.
Right. I do want to say, I guess we should emphasize the fact that it started way before then, because Wolverine First Class is one of these comics, but it's a different species and it's not as heavily used as, like, it's way more heavily used now. So basically what Marvel's done a lot is they've taken notable creators from yesteryear, like your Baby Niciezas, your Peter Davids, your Walt Simonsons, everything like that, which great creators, give them space, let them do their thing. But instead they're like, what if you told a story that existed in like a 5-minute window in between other stories that people liked? Or what if you told a story that filled in the blank of a story that you've never wanted to be filled in the blank on? And why don't you do that? And so they've been doing a lot of that. And it's been with the X-Men, it's been with Hulk, it's been with Venom, it's been with a whole bunch. I think, didn't they do like a Lethal Protector related one? And like
they definitely did.
No one who read Lethal Protector, the Venom story, was like, you know what? I need to find out what happened after he ate somebody in that book. Nobody needed that. So it's just been like this weird trend where, in my mind, they've been trying to appease an audience that wasn't stoked about what was happening in the moment. So like, why don't we just do this too? So everyone gets a flavor of what they want. I never read a comic from that until this moment. So thank you for taking me on that journey. It's just been a weird trend. So yeah, that's what's been happening.
Now, X-Men Legends was a really interesting kind of beast too, because like, as you said, David, it was taking older creators and bringing them back into the fold to try and tell these lost stories. But then the things that were told in them, debatable. This issue in particular is really just allowing Fabes to pick at the scab of just that one thing he will not let go, which is Black Womb, baby.
Are you a Black Womb guy, David?
I'm not going to lie. Somehow this is the first time I've ever been privy to the gifts of Black Womb.
Not weird, because you probably haven't read Gambit Volume 3.
No, I've not. No, I've not. I was like, Black Womb, why are you at this table and who are you?
Gambit Volume 3's got shooters out there, so we have to be careful.
Listen, Fabes, he's dedicated to this. Like when David, have you ever read Fabian Nicieza's 4-issue miniseries X-Men Forever?
I'm 95% certain, yes.
I mean,
I don't remember it.
It's not memorable, but it's one of those things where Fabes did a lot of homework and yet came up with this story that like interweaves with all of this continuity and yet is not good. And this issue is like that because Fabes did his homework. He knows where Sinister was during this particular issue and what other series he was in during this particular issue. And it's like, okay, Fabes, you've definitely hit the wiki for this one, but this is unnecessary.
He didn't hit the wiki. He was the wiki.
He was the wiki. Dang it.
I have a very hot take about this book. Are you ready?
I want to hear it. Yeah.
I think this is the single most pointless comic Marvel has ever made.
Wow.
And I say that admitting that there's actually charms to it in some ways, but it has a cast of, I mean, spoilers? Do you do spoilers?
We do. We assume that no one is going to read anything that we actually talk about.
To everyone who has been dying to read X-Men Legends number 10 and has not read it yet. But this book is about, I believe, 6 people who are trying to come up with solutions for all these problems that are guided by Sinister. It is a very motley crew. It involves Black Womb, a character I didn't know existed, Beast, Moira McTaggart, current mutant or not known mutant at that point, Magneto, Professor X, and Mr. Sinister. Am I missing anybody? I don't think so.
No, that's the eighth circle.
All of them are clones who die by the end of the issue. So they basically are born and die in the same issue without affecting, near as I can tell, literally anything anywhere in the Marvel universe. It's spectacular.
It exists
almost.
It's a simulation, but it exists almost entirely so that Fabes can just get out by the end of the issue the master plan of Black Womb.
Right.
Like, that is pretty much why the issue exists, so that he can spit that out. It's very similar to when he wrote Captain Marvel and like used it as some weird excuse to tell the origin story of Adam X the Extreme in between issues like 2 and 3 or something. Like
3 and 4, yes. Come on,
Fabes
how do you not know that off the top of your head, buddy?
Things go. If he can go back and like get it in there, he will. He gets excited.
As a X-Men freak, appreciate that about him.
But do you appreciate this issue? Because
this is a bad comic.
It's just a group of clones sitting around a table talking.
Yep.
And then trying to, I guess, Moira and Hank, who continues to go through his mutations as the issue.
I kind of like that. That was well done. Shouts to Jurgens for making that happen.
No, that I like.
They try and genetically fix themselves, but eventually, like you said, everybody just turns to mush. So what was the point of this? Like,
I hate asking that question, but it's a very good question to ask about this comic.
It is.
I can see the idea of, hey, let's echo the Krakoa stuff, but in that 90s context of let's get this group of big minds around talking about a thing, trying to solve it and do a like quiet council type comic. Unfortunately, it's not executed in any there's no big problem for them to solve here. We know it's the problem with like prequels and flashback stories in general. We know what the end point is. We know that they can't have done some secret thing here that changes the face of everything forever. So what we get is, hey, Black Wound was up to stuff. Well, we already knew that. And also very few people cared.
Yeah.
It did kind of seem like propaganda for Black Womb. Like she kept surviving. I'm like, why is she still here?
It's because Fabian Nicieza
loves
bless his soul, loves Black Womb, and he's not the only one. There is a strong and loud contingent of Black Womb girlies out there.
I'm very good to know. I'm learning so much about the Black Womb Hive right now. When is this supposed to take place? Because these are all ostensibly supposed to be existing in the cracks of stories.
It's supposed to take place during X Factor,
X-Men Volume 2, number 34, and X Factor. Hold on, I'll pull it up.
Do you know this or
No. These are
I
editor's
know,
notes.
hold
in the
on,
issue.
hold on. I only know it takes place when Havoc leaves X Factor and goes to the beach, and then Polaris is there with Mr. Sinister and the Nasty Boys.
X Factor 103 to 105.
Right after Madrox dies.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but to your point, David, no one was wondering, like, hey, what was going on with Sinister while they invaded, like while Beast went into his like secret lab in X-Men 34? Because readers at the time would have been like, oh, he was in Hawaii. We know that.
We know that when we read it too.
And
I
it's
love
in
that
this.
he's in Hawaii. Why is he in
Yeah.
Hawaii?
Well, because that's where X Factor was.
Okay.
No, it's because Alex, I think that's where Alex's adopted family was, but that could just be the X-Men Evolution cartoon.
That's pretty legit. I mean, he's from, like, was he born in Alaska too, or is it just
He was born in Alaska. After the plane crash, they got fostered in Nebraska for a hot minute, and then Alex got adopted out from, or separated from his brother because he was not being run in a good foster program. He was run in a torture school by Mr. Sinister.
Oh, okay. Alaskans love Hawaii. That was my point. So that's pretty legit. That makes sense.
Listen, of 100% of the Alaskans that I've talked to today, most of them were in Hawaii recently.
There you go. Boom.
I've never been. It sounds beautiful.
That's as scientific as literally anything Mr. Sinister was doing in this issue. I do want to say, I don't know if this is a weird comment. Mr. Sinister, Dan Jurgens gave him really weirdly nice lips. I don't know what's going on there. Very full lips.
I feel like Sinister's lips were a big part of his character in design in like the 80s and 90s. And that's one thing that has fallen off since we've gotten Dandy Sinister in the modern era.
Cape up, lips down.
Does he have the sharp teeth in this issue?
Oh,
I don't think. Did he?
I think he does.
I was too busy looking at his lips.
Yeah,
he's got some luscious lips. But you know, he's always going through evolutions. He's always changing himself. I get it. This is not a good comic, though.
No, this is a bad comic, Zach. This is not a good one.
I'm scrolling down on this list. We don't have anything else from this version of X-Men Legends on here.
Really?
Look, we're going to want to talk about the Adam X the Extreme story at some point, because I personally have a lot of strong feelings about Adam X the Extreme. Mostly that he rides a skateboard, even though he's never ridden a skateboard in comics. He just, like, you're picturing Adam X the Extreme on a skateboard right now, right? Like, that makes sense.
I'm mostly thinking of a backwards hat, to be honest.
Yeah. He does wear. Regardless, this is not as good as that Adam X the Extreme one that Fabian also did. It's also not as good as... No, it's better than the... What's the one you just talked about? The Captain Marvel story. Where is that on the list?
That's pretty low.
I know it's pretty low. It's better than this, though.
I have a number in my head, but I will wait for you guys. You're the leader.
I want to hear your number. Okay, Captain Marvel 2 and 3. You were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry for calling you out on that, Adam. I said the wrong issues of Captain Marvel.
No, didn't I say 3 and 4? I think you said 2 and 3.
It doesn't matter. I'm not going to edit this. You'll know when you do the edit who was right.
Yeah.
So I think this is higher than 894.
Oh, okay.
David, what was your number? I want to hear your number.
I saw Axis and I was like, that feels right. 966.
Oh, wow. That low.
I mean,
you're not wrong either is the thing.
I've read a lot fewer X-Men comics than you two have by the nature of your podcast. But
sure.
I imagine at a certain point, I'm not trying to disrespect your process, the gap between like 800 and 1023 is probably not sizable in terms of overall quality. It's hard to like figure out the gaps.
Oh,
Axis
the problem
felt right to me there.
The problem is most X-Men comics are bad.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
The other problem is
statistically,
this
Death of
issue
X is at 599 on here.
Oh, that was not a good comic.
It's not. It does have Aaron Cooter art that is fantastic.
That is
though.
nice, yeah.
Like, he kills it that entire time.
Let's just say that the pluses of this are, again, that Fabes did some homework. So I appreciate the effort. The execution is not good though. So like at 900, we do have some pretty sick Adam Kubert art in Wolverine 98 to 100. Even though that's ostensibly not a good story.
Well, I mean, it's not a good story. It does have the rat that I like.
Oh, Dirt Nap.
Dirt Nap, yes.
Yeah,
Good rat.
Dirt Nap.
Good rat boy. Is this better or worse than X-Men Forever by Fabian Nicieza at 951, Adam?
Oh, that's tough.
That's below Axis.
Is that
No, that's above Axis. No, never mind. We're going to use Axis. I think David's right. Axis is better than this. I'm looking at this. I'm looking
talking
at
about
this.
the Remender arc story, right? The
Yes,
event.
yes.
That was really dumb.
Axis is very dumb.
Yeah.
Axis. Okay, then we're right there because at 9.
Can I make a
12.
I would like
Yes,
to make
Adam.
the argument that this is better than Axis. And here's why. This comic is ultimately extremely harmless, whereas
Fair.
Axis was extremely harmful,
Very much
especially to some very core characters that did not recover from it for a very long time.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like,
I'm good with that.
yeah,
This is worse than Young X-Men 1 through 5, though.
yeah. But I don't know. It's not as
It's worse
narratively
than the
disjointed.
Shatterstar Saga.
Is
Do
it?
not look at the Shatterstar Saga and tell. No, wait. I'm saying that backwards. Yeah, I thought you were going to say Shatterstar Saga is good. Never mind. You're right, Adam. This should go right between those two.
All right, I think this should be our 963. Is everyone in agreement?
I'm in.
Great.
man.
I like to think that our guests, when we have guests for things like this, are sitting here at the rankings and be like, what's this nonsense that you're saying? They're talking about the Shatterstar Saga like it's Dark Phoenix.
I have read literally all of those comics in the 960s. I'm looking at this and I was like, Young X-Men, the one with the Terry Dodson covers. I was like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
The 12, yes, I know that. Shatterstar Saga, yes, I know that. Yeah, so I'm with you in this range. Why have I read more 900s than 500s? What does that say about me?
Because
I don't know.
that 500 range, I'll tell you, tends to be that level of no one read this, but it was pretty decent. Like this is where the solid stuff lives. Like I'm never gonna hand it to someone's recommend it, but like I'm not having a bad time reading it. You get much past that, it starts to be these comics are not good for your brain, and they give you what I call being an X-Men fan. Because that's the only way you enjoy some of these things.
My version of being an X-Men fan is being slightly incredulous that X-Men Survival Guide to the Mansion is $8.95, but that's another story for another time.
The incredible artifact. It is not a narrative.
It is a fake comic. It is.
We had to look at it as a comic.
I know.
We do
it's a
need
terrible
more-
comic. I love it.
We do need more spiral bound little handbook things like that though for our lives, like that's
absolutely.
huge.
I have it right over there. It's tearing up my other comics with its stupid spiral bound side.
It's the worst thing to put in a box.
I have it in a spinner rack. It's like terrible.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I've got a
Amazing.
spinner rack right here. I should put it in a spinner rack.
There you go.
Oh,
There you go. Save your other
I think it's
books.
at the bottom of a pile of boxes, though. I don't know if I want to get that out. We'll see what happens in the future. But we're still flashing back to the past.
Literally, this one says flashback on it, Zach.
It does.
This is Generation X -1. It's a Scott Lobdell. No, this is not Scott Lobdell.
James Robinson.
This is James Robinson and Chris Picciolo. The Marvel Wikia is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that, editors of that website. Perhaps you should do this free service for us better instead of the comic that explicitly calls out their names.
Be
in the
nice.
issue.
Be nice.
It was really hard to figure out who wrote it, except for the fact that they said Jim Robinson wrote it in the text of the book.
Yes,
but I was
Stan
like,
Lee
but
does say
which
that.
Jim? Yeah.
So,
Wait, can I make one note on the creators?
please.
Yeah, please.
The colorist is the current editor-in-chief of DC Comics, Marie Javins.
Hey,
Fun fact.
That is true.
Look at that.
That is true.
I found that
See,
to be very charming.
I know intellectually that Marie Javins has been like a mainstay in comics for a very long time and has been like doing really good work and is spoken of incredibly highly by just about everybody in the industry. But because I read mostly trash X-Men comics, I think of her as, a letterer in the 90s at Marvel or a colorist in the 90s at Marvel.
Yeah.
It's just the association that comes into my mind, which is unfair because DC's putting out good books and hiring good people.
Well, she colored Generation X -1 too, so there you go.
I'll say the coloring in this, I dug.
Yeah.
it's a
I
good
wanna talk
issue
about
of
the
comics,
art-
folks.
I want to talk about the art on this a
Agreed.
bit.
Agreed.
Well, hold on.
Your-
Before we talk about the art, we should just note for anybody that doesn't remember, Flashback was an entire event where like over 25 books had their like -1 issues slotted in between whatever their next issue was supposed to be. And do all of them have Stan Lee come out and introduce the story?
Yes, they 100% all do. And can I tell you why?
Wasn't it because of Chris?
Because Chris Picciallo in some random issue, it was the issue of Generation X where the Executioner is hunting Chamber in them.
Hell yeah.
He did that. He drew Stan Lee introducing the comic, and Marvel thought it was really charming and did a whole event around it.
Amazing.
And I like that specifically because one of the topics for this episode that we were batting around with David was Chris Picciallo, who, you know, we are noted fans of
Huge
Chris.
fan.
I am lucky enough to have one of his pages on my wall. David is a very large Chris Picciallo fan as well.
I love Chris. Yeah, it's amazing.
Fantastic.
David,
dude.
have you had the pleasure of meeting Chris? Because we have not yet.
I have
Chris.
not. I have a fun fact that I will.
Who's we?
Wait, you've met him,
met
Zach?
Yes.
When?
At a con.
Is that where you got the page?
No, I got the page online later. Because here's the thing: if you want to buy good art from him, you have to buy from his inkers.
Oh, okay.
And not directly from Chris, because there's a markup on that. Which good for him. Get all that money.
Get that
Yeah,
money,
I
Chris.
only have so much. I only have so much of that.
That's a
give
pro
away.
tip. Pro tip from Zach. I like it.
Pro
I've-
tip: when you're buying Chris Picciallo pages.
I have not met him.
So we all love Chris. That's the important thing about
Yes.
this. I would say Chris Picciallo is a guy who has gone through a lot of evolution in his style. Obviously, he started on this book, Generation X. That was a big book for him.
What do you mean started? You mean the
Started
career? Or for Marvel?
He started the book Generation
Oh, okay,
X.
okay.
He started on this book.
Okay.
Previously at Marvel, he had done Ghost Rider 2099, which more people should read.
And an Incredible Hulk annual and X-Men Unlimited 1?
One.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unlimited 1. And then he had left this book to do, I believe he left the book to do Death.
Yeah. Then he came back.
And then he came back. And his style is very different in his return to Generation X than it was right when he started. I guess I'm curious, David, what your thoughts are on this more chibi, cartoony style that he was playing with for a couple of years here.
To answer that question, I have to ask you a question. Have either of you read Steampunk, his cliffhanger story series?
Oh, I
No.
love steampunk, and one
I-
day
I
I,
also
hope
love
he
Getting to
finishes
buy
it.
it.
Yeah, yep. I also love it. I honestly think, because I haven't read this in a long time, and I haven't read Steampunk in a long time,
Yeah.
I think this is like where you can really see the path to Steampunk beginning. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because you see it way more here than you do in other Generation X issues. And I think it's for the reasons you were saying, Zach, because he bounced out to a Death series over at Vertigo, comes back, changes up his style. I think it works really well here. And there's some really standout sections of this issue. So the premise of the story, if you don't mind me stepping on your thing, is
Go.
basically basically it's an interlude. It's a flashback that is taking place in between multiple issues. And it tells a story of 16-year-old Emma Frost, who's just figuring out her powers, living on the street, trying to like gain power, basically. Goes to this person's party featuring a lot of very wealthy people, including Harry Leland from the Brotherhood or from the Hellfire Club, and somehow crosses like her path with both Dark Beast and Banshee. And so basically it's the first time Banshee and Emma Frost meet. Although I do think it's kind of funny that I call Banshee and they call Emma Frost, but whatever. It's the nature of the characters.
It's like five people think of Emma like, oh yeah, White Queen. That's who she
I know. But anyway, so that's the premise. And like there is a section in this, there's a double page spread where Bachalo and Marie Javins show her Emma's arrival to this party and going across the panels and everything. And it is such a dense but fantastically told double page spread that it is like, you see that, and like I don't know how you don't know that Chris Picciallo is one of the best comic artists going in like all like superhero books. It's just fantastic. I love it. I think he kills it on this issue.
I think he absolutely kills it, and I wonder how much of him killing it here and his evolution comes from Alvey doing the inking versus Mark Buckingham, who had been inking him a lot, especially in his early stuff in the 90s.
You read my mind, because like I think that's a huge part of the difference between what we saw in the first iteration of Generation X and what we're seeing here, is that not only is Chris changing, but we see his style shift tremendously as his inkers change. And Alvey is on his work at this point, and I don't know how much that lends to the cartoony quality of what is going on. Chris is clearly experimenting here with things that he's done in the past. Before this comes out in 97.
Seven.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we have characters here with such exaggerated features, even more than we would normally from his art. So there's an older gentleman with basically he's an old guy with like a beard and white hair, and he's very skinny frame. But if you don't really look at it, you might miss the fact that his head is like 3 or 4 times larger than Emma, and he has giant hands, and like he's playing around with proportions in really, really interesting ways here that he might not have previously, that adds to the cartoonish quality of what he's doing. And just from an arts perspective alone, this is a really interesting showcase for what he's capable of. The other one that it just blows my mind about this issue is that, as you said, Dave, it is 1997, and we're here seeing a story of 16-year-old Emma Frost. And this is a good 6 years before we will get the Emma Frost solo series, which portends to tell that backstory. This does it so much better. And the one detail in this issue, which I find just utterly fascinating and so right about Chris getting the Emma Frost character right at this age. Did everybody notice that she was pre-nose job?
I did not pick up on that.
She is very much pre-nose job Emma Frost. Take a look. You will notice like a slight downturn of the nose. You will notice like a little bit more of a pronounced ridge to her nose. And just the fact that Chris incorporates that into who this character is, and it's just fantastic. And the incorporation of Dark Beast into this is also really weird, because the continuity is trying to establish how Dark Beast came over from Age of Apocalypse and was time tossed backwards into continuity. It's very strange.
It's strange. It feels like there should be more that comes out of this Dark Beast thing. And I don't know how much of that is just a result of James Robinson not being on the book for too much longer.
He did like 3 issues besides this, right? Something like that.
He did some stuff he did like around Operation Zero Tolerance. He was on the book before Hama does it, but he has a shortened run compared to Lobdell or others on this book. Yeah, because he jumps in right after Lobdell, does a few issues, and then Hama picks up a few later, and then it's what's his name, who I can't remember at this exact second, and it's bothering me, so I'm going to look it up just so the people on their phones right now aren't yelling. He does it with Terry Dodson. Adam, who am I thinking of?
Hold on.
Like we know this.
I know.
I do want to say, can I make a quick aside?
Yeah, yes, please. While I'm looking this up.
I definitely feel like they wanted to do something more with Dark Beast here. Now, granted, I don't remember the intimate details of the totality of Generation X, probably in the same way that you do.
Never shows up again.
It feels very much like the beginning of a relationship between Dark Beast that I otherwise do not, or between Dark Beast and Emma that I don't really know exists.
I think that would be. It never exists again. I believe the next time they both appear in the same comic, it is another Chris Picciolo drawn comic, but it's like in the Bendis Uncanny X-Men era.
It's a shame
and they do not interact.
Yeah, it's a shame this wasn't, followed up on. Zach, I believe you're thinking about Jay Faerber.
Yeah, we're thinking
Faerber.
about Jay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't even know he wrote Generation X. To be honest,
Jay has I'm not going to call it good, but a very solid run on Generation X, like compared to the Hama stuff. And I love Lethal Larry Hama, but Generation X is not a
good fit.
Not a good fit.
Like a good fit.
No. It was a fit because Jubilee was also in that book, and he had no interest in writing Jubilee anymore. But no, this is this is an interesting comic. It's absolutely worth taking a look at, especially if you like art, especially Chris's art, or just want to see early Emma stuff. Like, look, it's got something for the majority of X-Men people. Adam, where would you pretend to put this? I'm looking for other Gen X stories.
Can I make a observation
Yes.
about this book while you guys do it?
Yeah,
Make an
please.
observation.
I do think that it's interesting looking at these three. I don't know if you're doing a wrap up at the end, so I might be spoiling this, but
No, go.
I feel like these three books really give you a number of different flavors of flashbacks in interesting ways, because I think the difference between, I think Gen X -1 was the best of these three.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by far.
Obviously, Wolverine First Class was way better than X-Men Legends number 10. And I think one of the differences is like X-Men Legends 10 feels like it's trying to do something versus the other two, which feel like they're just trying to be good stories about these characters.
Yes.
Agreed.
Like the character work with Emma in this, and about how she kind of views people and how she views like trying to like gain advantages, both using her powers and as just a person, is actually really great character work. It's great stuff by James Robinson and Chris Pachalo there.
Well, I think it's one thing that comics fans, especially the type of comics fans who are very into their character and their like vision of a franchise, miss, is that the important thing on any of this stuff is to tell a good story. End of the day, it's just about, can you say something with this piece of art? It's commercial art, but it's art, dang it. Like,
Yeah.
let somebody write a story that is about more than Spider-Man webbing somebody up. Let me feel what Spider-Man is feeling while he's webbing somebody up, you know?
Well, and I mentioned the Emma Frost solo series. It is interesting just how much this can convey about young Emma Frost in such a short number of pages. And that book, it fails so hard on the same task, even though it's like running for a dozen or more. So we have a bunch of different Gen X on here. Admittedly, not as much as you would think. I mean, this is not as good as the first 3 issues of Gen X.
No,
That's at 46.
I have a ceiling, and it is 245, the Generation X Underground Special.
Okay. All right.
Which I think is better, and that puts it below Cable -1, which God bless Chris Pachalo, but he's no Ladrone. Very few people are Ladrone.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But I still think this is a 200s book.
David, if you haven't looked at Cable -1,
I know
that's
Ladrone. I believe me, like Ladrone is amazing, but I really love Chris Pachalo. But anyways,
I really love Chris Pachalo. Cable -1 is Ladrone going off.
So
It's incredible.
I'm gonna look at it.
at 315, we have Gen X number 5. So
That's from volume 2. That is the iBoy story. This is better than
I think this is better than that. But I don't think this is as good as Madripoor Nights, which is, David, this is one of our...
hold on. Madripoor Nights is criminally low on this list, and
it's
we
not
both
where it's
know
supposed to be. But I think it's probably somewhere in here, you know? Like, this is
Have you made
as
changes?
good as the time Sam takes
We
Lila.
have made changes once during the re-ranking,
Oh, okay.
which was our 300th episode. We have made it a point that when we will make changes to this, we're going to re-rank Madripoor Nights. I don't know what we were doing on that day. Honestly,
It's one of these
that's
things
the
that just
problem.
got pushed down over time, and it's just the nature of this list.
Here's what I'll say. 292
Mhm.
is the first chunk of X-Men the manga, which I've recently just read the second remastered edition of.
A lot of fun.
I'm gonna say, it's honestly, if you love weird artifacts, those remastered, go listen to our episode with David Brothers about those. It's incredible what they did with these, and the second one's even more crazy. This is better than the manga, though. I think this is like strongly better than that. I would say this is, Adam, how do you feel about this compared to, no, this is better than Nightcrawler's Inferno at 280, where he does the Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, but
I
it's
think
not.
I think it's. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It can't be better than Power Pack 19, the Thanksgiving,
Where they have
issue,
Thanksgiving with Beta Ray Bill. Yes, of
the
course.
276.
Everyone knows that. We all think about it all the time. I would put it right below that, above the issue with the Uncanny X-Men fight Magus.
Dave, any objections?
I was just going to say my absolute ceiling would be 258 with Wolverine, the X-Men Volume 1, number 1 through 3. But I agree with where you guys are ending up. I think that's a good fit.
Perfect. All right. So at 277, we have Generation X -1. For those of you looking that up on Marvel Unlimited, please be aware that it is listed very oddly as Generation X 0.
I can't imagine that the Marvel Unlimited people we're expecting to have to deal with negative numbers.
Yeah, I think that's probably why it's a 0 and not a, but whatever. And it's
fine.
in the continuity. So it's in between whatever, it's 27, 28, something like
And that was a fun way to flash around and eat.
Flash around. Man, this ain't that kind of show.
Jeez,
I mean, it's
Louise.
an audio medium.
We got visuals over here, and I'm not happy.
We do have.
Put your jacket back on, Zach.
You know what I'm happy about? I'm happy that David got to join us today. David, if you don't check out what's going on Off Panel or Sketched, truly some of my favorite comic stuff that's being done today. Make sure you go check it if you've like our vibe here on this podcast. If you like the stuff that was going on at CXF or still going on there, check out what David's got going on and check out his new book.
Yeah, that's right.
What's
Sketchbook
it called?
2024. It's so hot right now.
Sketchbook 2024. It is hot right now. I'm excited about it. I've got my copy coming at some point.
I just set the record for most books I've sold, so I'm very proud of that.
That's awesome.
Boom. There we
And
go.
Look at that.
David, if people want to
That
find
was just
you,
because of the podcast, right? That's only because you're on this show right now.
That's right. I mean, I'm actually a time traveler from 2 weeks from now, and
So this
amazing.
everything came from this podcast.
This
are
episode
you telling me
is
this
a
entire
flashback.
podcast?
It is a flashback. That's right. By the way, 2 weeks from now, you won't even believe what's going to happen. But
Whoa.
where can you find me? You can find me at sketch.com. That's my subscription comic site. One-time Eisner nominated. I always say Eisner loser. Then people kept telling me that it's not very nice to myself. And I'm like, I don't feel bad about it. I host Off Panel, which is my weekly comics interview podcast. New episodes every Monday. This week was Heidi McDonald, where we talked about the crazy world of the comic industry right now. Next week is Craig Thompson from Blankets and the upcoming Ginseng Roots. And then after that is Sophie Campbell. And I'm coming up to episode 500, which is very exciting. Yeah, coming up, where I will be talking about why you guys are wrong at every single item in your entire list. It'll be fantastic.
Good. Let's do it. Let's
do
make
it.
it happen.
Counter podcast. And then Off Panel has Patreon, patreon.com/Off Panel. And you can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram. And that's all of it for social media. I don't know. Buy Sketchbook. It's cool. Sketchbook 2024. And there's a zine on there too, which is great. There is an article that I think your listeners might appreciate.
Yeah, the basketball one.
The basketball one. I did a piece where I hypothesized what would happen if the X-Men became real and all wanted to play in the NBA and who would be the best at basketball. So, actually, it is going up on Sketch this week because the NBA playoffs. I decided I was going to do my first Sketch zine cross post.
I have to ask this because I think this is true, and I want to make sure that if it is true, our listeners are aware of it. David, do you also have a Kyle Starks
Yes, I do.
picture of Wolverine playing basketball?
Yes, I do.
There's two of them out there. They're on this podcast, folks.
Kyle, I think, was actually mad at you that you said that to him when like I posted it. He's just like, "Come on, man! I've done it twice. That's okay." I think it's a great sketch. I think it's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I just think it's great that there were plenty of people who were in that group of people who like Kyle Starks and people who want basketball pictures of Wolverine, and it was two people.
I also have a Indiana Pacers Kyle Starks thing that he did for me from the Old Head Kickstarter, which was great.
Oh my god, that's great.
That's a guy that should do an X-Men book. Why has he never done anything X-Men related? I think he'd be really fun at it.
Don't know.
Bud,
would love to read it.
If there was justice in the world, then he would grab that Pog from Ten of Swords sketch that he did for me and put it in a real comic, and we would have the Pog miniseries by Kyle Stark.
I need to see it afterwards. Not right now, though. We got to
no.
podcast.
I'll shoot you a PNG of that bad boy. Adam, what do you got going on? What do you got to plug?
Well,
real quick.
Friends, we have a very big event coming up. I mentioned it on the last episode, but Comics XF is tabling at the Super Jersey Comic Expo this coming weekend. That is April 26th and 27th. So please come out, check it out. We will have copies. I'll be there. Anna will be there. Dan Grote will be there. Matt Lazowitz will be there. We will be selling copies of the brand new, hot off the presses Comics XF zine featuring cover art by yours truly. We'll have a lot of other odds and ends. Anna's bringing some shirts. I'm hoping to bring some prints of my artwork. I believe Maddie Laz is putting together a dollar bin box of all of our old dollar issues we don't want anymore. So should be a fun time. Please come out, say hi. Don't be weird, but be cool. And we hope to see you out there if you are in the tri-state area and can make it. Other than that, socials, Adam Rec on Blue Sky and Instagram. Keep up with what's going on with the show. David, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was a blast.
Thank you. It was a great time. Next week, folks, we got Headmaster Magneto. But until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!